Hey, Senator Sanders, good
How
to
are
see
you?
you. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for doing this. All right.
How you doing?
Welcome. Where should we start? Let's start with Biden's removal from the ticket, Senator, and that period over the summer that really I think historians will be sifting through for a long time. I interviewed Anita Dunn recently, and when she was talking about the people who were the most loyal, in the Biden White House's view, the most steadfast backers of the president right to the end, she mentioned your name at the top of the list. You were, there were some dead enders in the White House, but you were one of the few people on the outside who absolutely supported him staying.
Yep.
Why?
Well, I happen to think that President Joe Biden has been the most progressive president of the United States since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And I think if you look at his record, it's a record in which we finally, after years of talk, took on the very powerful pharmaceutical industry, beginning to lower prices. How many years have we all heard talk about rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure? Well, guess what? Biden led the effort to do that. We've heard talk about the need to save the planet because of climate change. Well, guess what? Joe Biden and those of us in Congress put more money into transforming our energy system than any administration in history. I have talked and certainly campaigned on the need to cancel all student debt in this country. I think that young people who go to college should not have to spend the rest of their lives paying off a debt because they wanted to get an education. Well, Biden didn't do that, but we canceled student debt for over 5 million Americans. And as somebody who is a very strong supporter of the trade union movement, I was really pleased to see President Biden being the first president of the United States to ever walk on a picket line. That's a big deal, and standing up for American workers. So for all of those reasons, I was proud to support his domestic policies, and I wanted to see him get a second term.
Did you think if he was reelected that he could serve 4 more years?
Yes, I did. I would not have supported him if I didn't. Look, where I think the confusion is, and I fault the media for this a lot.
But that's like, you do that a lot, you fault the media.
This is not a beauty contest. It's not an entertainment show. Do I think Biden is a great campaigner? No, I don't. But I think he was an excellent president. And I understand to become president, you need to campaign. That's for sure. But I think we spend too much time worrying about this gaffe and that dumb thing that somebody may say, or that brilliant thing that everyone will forget tomorrow, rather than staying focused on the issues. How often do we really... Now, you tell me. I'm going to ask you a question. All right, you ready for the interview? All right, here we go.
Let's start.
All right. In this whole election cycle, right, of which we've seen a lot, we have Donald Trump, Biden, Kamala, and so forth, how much real discussion has there been on the most important issues facing the American people?
I would say a great deal. And if you read Politico every day, you will see an enormous amount of policy coverage. I'm on our morning meeting every morning, and that morning meeting is driven by policy concerns. I'll be very honest with you.
All right. All right, wait a minute. Right. Who is doing the interviewing now? Why did I ask you to come on the show? I mean, you got to answer the question.
Yeah, ask me about my gaffes.
All right. All right. Let me give you an example. All right. You got 3 people in America who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society.
Yeah.
You got 1% that owns more wealth than the bottom 90%. You have CEOs that make 350 times more money than workers. We have more income and wealth inequality in America today than we've ever had in the history of this country. How often have we discussed it?
Well,
let me ask them.
Well, you guys discuss it
let me have the audience. No, audience, have you heard that discussed?
Are you asking me the question?
No,
Am I being interviewed or them?
I'm ignoring you. You haven't answered my questions. No.
But you ask it all the time. I was at a dinner with you a few months ago, an off-the-record dinner, and you asked that exact same question
Yes.
to the entire table. So obviously, it gets asked quite a bit by you. But look, let's go back. Now we'll switch
All
back.
right,
I'll let you
I'll
get
let
in a
you-
few more. I'll let you get in a few more. But I really do want to ask a couple more about the switch from Biden to Harris, because your argument is, were you bothered by that debate? Didn't you think that debate was problematic just because he couldn't make a coherent argument
I
against
thought it was a disastrous debate, period. Everybody did, and so did I. So did he.
All right.
But again, what I appreciated about him is he has been an excellent president. I believe that if he was beginning to talk about the needs of the working class of this country, he would have won re-election. I believe he could have served out another term in a very strong way. But all of that is ancient history. Kamala Harris is our candidate. I'm going to do everything I can to see that she is elected and defeats Donald Trump.
I mean, it happened this summer. It was not ancient history. We're all here right
Well,
now
I know. Right.
putting an exclamation point on what happened a few weeks ago. Do you think Kamala Harris is the best person to take on Donald Trump?
I think she is going to be, she's a great campaigner. I think she's very articulate. We're not best friends, but I've known her for many years. She is tough. And if I were Donald Trump, I know why Donald Trump is getting nervous. I don't think he wants to debate her, to tell you the truth, for good reason. So I think she has the potential to be an excellent president. I've been impressed. She's been head of the ticket now for 4 weeks or so? And in 4 weeks, she has done a whole lot. I've been all over the country. I think the polls are looking better. I think in picking Tim Walz as her vice presidential nominee, I think that was a good pick.
Was he the one you liked
The
best?
people that were out there, I liked him. Yeah, I think he was, what I like about Tim is a very down-to-earth guy. He really is. The fact that he was a football coach at a public high school, a teacher, the fact that he was a veteran, the fact that he had a really good record, I think, as governor of Minnesota, despite having a very small political margin in the legislature. Yeah, I like him.
Did you have a history with him when he was in Congress?
Not much.
No?
No, a little bit.
But did you consider him a kind of a Bernie-crat when he was in
I
Congress? Or not
understand
really?
what Fox News is saying and what the Trump people are saying. No,
Because I'm saying he was not. He wasn't a lefty in Congress. Am I wrong about that?
he was not what?
He was not a lefty. He was not on the left of the Democratic
No,
Party
he
in
was
Congress.
not. No, he was not. And he focused. I think he spent a lot of time, which I appreciated. I was the chairman of the Veterans Committee when I was in the Senate. When I am in the Senate, I was chairman. And he was what called the ranking member in the House. So I appreciate that. I happen to think that we owe our veterans an enormous debt of gratitude for what they have done for our country. And I think Tim has the familiarity with the issues out there to be a real advocate for them.
What's really impressed you that he's gotten done as governor?
A couple of things. I think he has provided universal breakfast and lunches for the kids of Minnesota. I think we should be a little bit embarrassed in the United States, the richest country in the history of the world, that children are going hungry. And the fact that basically when you do that, provide breakfast and lunch guarantee that kids in Minnesota will not be going hungry. And that is a decent thing to do.
Anything else?
Well, he has, I think, stood up with working people. I think, as I recall, he got paid family and medical leave done. He has stood up with the unions there and defended their rights. So I think all in all, the record is a pretty strong record.
Let's talk about what you know about Kamala Harris and her views on policy.
On what policy?
On policy in general. You guys had some spirited debates in the 2020 primaries. What did you learn about her in that contest?
Well, I like Kamala Harris a whole lot. I think she's an incredibly smart person. I think she's incredibly tough. I think she's focused. Look, we differ. That's what happens in a primary. People have different points of view. It is my view that our current healthcare system is completely broken and dysfunctional. And that it's absurd that we spend twice as much per capita on healthcare as the people of any other nation, with outcomes that are often not as good. So I think the system really has got to be fundamentally changed. We need Medicare for all. And we, you know.
She was for Medicare for
She
all.
was, and she altered her position. She's not for that now.
Is that disappointing to you?
No, well, that was what happened 4 years ago, so nothing is... The media suddenly is talking a whole lot about what you did 4 years ago. Not exactly a surprise to anybody who follows political events. That's not her view, nor is it President Biden's point of view. And you know what? I think I'm right, and they're wrong. But what am I going to do?
All right. Let's talk about what she has proposed so far, and where would you like her to go if you could push her? She wants to raise the corporate tax, let's start with that, to 28%. What do you think?
I think it's right.
But is that
Look,
enough?
let me answer the question.
Anyway, it was a two-parter.
We have massive income and wealth inequality in America, and the richest people have never done better, period. They're making out like bandits, and many of them are bandits. So do I think that at a time when you have some billionaires who are literally paying an effective tax rate lower than a truck driver or a nurse, should we raise taxes on the rich when you got some huge corporations out there that in some cases are paying almost nothing in taxes? Yeah, I think what we need to do is bring about progressive tax reform in this country that demands that the wealthy and large corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
A lot of the Harris agenda seems to be things that got that were on the cutting room floor from the first 2 years of the Biden administration. What got taken out of the IRA due to obviously the effort to get Manchin and Sinema on board. Do you see it that way? And what was left over from that agenda that you think is really, really critical for the next president?
I tell you, I think I have personally been negligent, and I think Congress has been negligent in not recognizing the housing crisis. And I got to tell you, my wife did a meeting on this in Burlington, Vermont. That's all we heard: housing, housing, housing. And the truth is that in the state of Vermont, Los Angeles, and every place in between, people are having a really hard time finding affordable housing. Yeah. Not to mention that we have 650,000 people who are homeless. So jumping right on to that issue early on and saying we've got to build, I think she was talking about 3 million units of affordable housing. I would do low-income housing and I would do senior housing, very serious issue, is enormously important. And figuring out how we put a rent, as you may know, Wall Street is buying up more and more housing in America, companies like Blackstone and others. And I think they just cannot buy homes and then raise rents substantially, gentrify entire neighborhoods. I think you got to deal with that issue, and I appreciate that she is doing that.
She's the right has attacked her, and Trump has attacked her for price controls. Do you see what she is proposing as price controls?
Look,
and if not,
Trump has called
anything wrong with that?
Trump has called her an extreme communist. So it doesn't matter what Trump says because nobody believes what he says. But I think that addressing this issue, which is a complicated issue to be sure, somehow controlling, I will tell you that it's a popular response. People are sick and tired of seeing landlords jack up rents. I mean, I've talked to too many people who have to force to move out of their homes, take their kids out of their schools. So I think what she's doing, and it's a difficult issue, got to work on a lot of details. It is a step absolutely in the right direction. And the other thing that she mentioned, I don't know if you want to go over all or...
Yeah, let's go through them, yeah.
All right, one of the others that pops to my mind, an issue we had a hearing on actually, as chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, is on medical debt. I don't know if you guys know this, but something like 1 out of 4 Americans who are getting cancer treatment end up going bankrupt or financially depleting their resources. Now, how insane is that? So if you're dealing with cancer, then you're also dealing with having to you're worrying about destroying your family's finances. So what she wants to do, as I understand it, is cancel all medical debt in America, and I think that's a step forward.
What would you like to see the first Congress with Kamala Harris as president, and let's say it's a Democratic, let's say you guys retain the Senate and take back the House.
Good.
What's your list of priorities for that Democratic
Good.
trifecta?
All right, let me tell
Good. You like that question?
I love that question. It's a great question.
I like when the questions get
brilliant
reviewed.
question.
I like when they get reviewed.
You know, for a start, the general answer, Ryan, is you know what I'd like them to do? To do what the American people want them to do. And
People
we
have
just
different
did
ideas
some-
about that.
Pardon me?
People have different ideas about that.
Well, yes and no. Sometimes when you do polling and there's overwhelming response, that's not a debatable issue. Some people may disagree. Give you an example. We did a poll. I don't know if you're familiar with it. My campaign did a poll 2 weeks ago. We paid for a poll. And the results were not really different than other polls. For example, right now we have about 50% of our senior citizens living on $30,000 a year, and a quarter of them living on $15,000. God knows how you live on $15,000. What most Americans, overwhelming majority of Americans, including the majority of Republicans, believe is we should lift the cap on taxable income so that the wealthy pay more into the Social Security Trust Fund. And when you do that, you can raise Social Security benefits by $2,400 a year and expand the solvency of Social Security for 75 years. Overwhelming support, over 70%, including a majority of Republicans. Similarly, same numbers with Medicare. People want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision. People are sick and tired, and we're making some progress on this, lowering prescription drug costs. We are paying, roughly speaking, twice as much for prescription drugs as other people. People want to not have us pay anymore. So do those things. It's popular. It's good policy. That's some of what I'd like to see done.
So how far off would you like Harris to embrace that?
Yes,
Yeah?
I would.
Have you had conversations with her policy advisors yet?
We have a little bit, yes.
And you think there's a
Well,
chance
look,
they're interested? Are they into it?
Yeah, like everything else, it's, you know, there's a lot of factors involved, including mobilizing ordinary Americans to make that demand. Look, here's an issue that we don't talk very much about. What about money in politics? An important issue?
I assume you're going to say yes.
I'm assuming you're going to agree with me.
I'm trying. Are we switching back? Are you doing the interview?
Yeah, I'm doing the interview. I let you interview me for a while.
I got to be
that's
careful
enough.
here. I do think money in politics is an important issue. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's an
I can say
enormously
that.
important issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are very few people in America who don't understand that big money has enormous influence over both political parties. Period.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So the reason that we haven't raised the minimum wage above $7.25 an hour, the reason that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people, the reason why you have billionaires who pay an effective tax rate lower than truck drivers, that's not an accident. That is the power of money. And when Donald Trump says to the fossil fuel industry, what, you correct me if I'm wrong here, give me $1 billion into my campaign, is that what he said?
I believe there's. Yeah, I don't want to get the
Roughly.
fact check wrong here, but I believe that he was caught.
Okay,
yeah,
give me
saying
some
something
money
like
and I'll
that.
do
Yeah.
what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, hey, welcome to the world.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about. But it's not just Donald Trump and it's not just the fossil fuel industry. It's money talks. Ordinary people have a vote. And super PACs, billionaires put money into super PACs. Super PACs can spend hundreds of millions of dollars electing, defeating the candidates that they want.
And Democrats are basically living and embracing that system. This issue of campaign finance reform has really fallen to the bottom of the
Not
list.
to my mind, it hasn't.
Yeah.
To my mind, it's the most important issue that's out there. Because you're not going to get, look, again, I don't mean to be questioning you. You've been a very good guest, and I'm really delighted.
It's fine.
We'll bring you back
We've gone down
sometime.
this road.
But, I mean, you tell me, do you think it's a democracy when everybody here has one vote? That's good. And somebody else,
Well, we're in Chicago, so.
all right, some billionaire can contribute, you know, a group of billionaires contribute hundreds of millions of dollars to elect a candidate. Is that really democracy? I don't think so. You know, did you have a vote? Is democracy. The billionaires by election is not democracy. So the Citizens United is one of the worst Supreme Court decisions. Stands up there with Roe v. Wade and denying women the right to control their own bodies. Two disastrous Supreme Court decisions that we've got to overturn.
Would you prioritize that more than leading Democrats do these days? If you're
Yeah, I don't
just
hear
on the
enough.
presidential campaign, because it's really fallen.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't know how it can fall from discussion. Everybody just follow this campaign. You know more about this stuff than I do, but my impression is that super PACs are playing an enormous role in elections all over the country, right?
Sure, yeah.
And super PACs are funded by billionaires. Now, I can tell you from a personal experience, as somebody who supported several progressive candidates in New York, Jamal Bowman, Missouri, Cori Bush. Both of them were defeated by huge amounts of money coming in from a super PAC funded by AIPAC. That's outrageous. All right, it really is outrageous. So I may be old-fashioned, and I come from a state like in Vermont where we have town meetings. You know, town meeting is a meeting like this. Everybody gets a vote. You vote on the budget, school budget, vote on the road budget, and then majority wins. You don't have people coming in with huge amounts of money to buy election, and I worry about that very much, and it has to be front and center in future political discussion.
Let's go back to the first term agenda of a Harris-Walz administration with a Democratic Congress. I think Schumer's coming up next, so you could actually lobby him here. What else do you want to see prioritized?
As chairman of the committee that deals with this stuff, the idea that we have a $7.25 an hour minimum wage when 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck is abysmal. You got to raise that minimum wage to a living wage, which I would say would be $17 an hour at least. I think that also we're seeing, as you may be aware, a revitalization of the trade union movement.
Politico is a unionized company.
Pardon me?
Politico is a unionized company.
There you go. All right.
That's been a huge change in the media since I've been working in the media.
Good.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and we're seeing that all over. We're seeing nurses and even doctors and students and Starbucks workers trying to organize. But what's happening now is that large corporations are spending hundreds of millions of dollars making it hard for workers to join unions. We're seeing that in Amazon. We're seeing that at Starbucks. We had a hearing with the head of Starbucks, Schultz, coming in. So I think we need to pass what's called the PRO Act, which is legislation that would, severely penalize companies that use illegal activities to prevent unionization. So that's an important issue to me. I think, and
Harris is already there on the PRO Act, of course.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
And another area where I think she is too. Look, as a nation, we have to ask ourselves how it is that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. And one of the really exciting things we did in the American Rescue Plan, as you'll recall, is we provided a $300, what they call refundable tax credit. But we got a lot of money out to parents, and the result of that is we lowered childhood poverty in America by 40%. And that's something that obviously has to be made permanent.
Harris talked about that recently. What do you think of where she landed on that issue, which I know is very important to you?
Well, in fairness to her, she's been the candidate for a month. They haven't fleshed out, and that's the way it is. She's busy running around the country and everything.
How would you flesh that one out?
Well, the answer is you do what we did in the American Rescue Plan worked, you make that permanent, period.
Yeah. Why haven't they done that? Why do you think that they didn't say
Well,
that?
we tried to do that, by the
Or
way,
why didn't
Congress. Yeah.
But why do you think that Harris didn't go there?
Look, they're juggling a million things. And in fairness, they will be announcing new proposals, I'm sure, in the coming weeks and months. So I don't know.
I want to go back to one question about how we got here with Harris as the nominee, and that is the fact that nobody challenged her once Joe Biden dropped out. Do you think it would have been better for Democrats to have had some kind of debate among themselves? And why didn't you throw your hat in the ring as the last man standing from 2020?
Look, I think what most of us, and I'm an independent who caucuses with the Democrats, but I think what most of us, and I think most of the American people, I hope, believe that it's absolutely imperative that Donald Trump be defeated. Trump is the most dangerous candidate, I think, in the history of this country. I think he lies all of the time in just absolutely preposterous ways. So I think there is a consensus that he has to be beaten. I think my guess is, I am happy right now to be a United States Senator. I'm running for re-election to Vermont. That's keeping me busy. But I think there was a general consensus that Kamala Harris has done a good job as vice president, that she would be a strong candidate. And the alternative is to open up some kind of wild debate, which would, fracture the party a little bit. Was probably not a great idea. That's my guess, but I'm not privy.
You weren't quick out of the gate with enthusiastic backing of her. Did you have anyone that you thought would have been better? Did you encourage anyone to challenge her?
No, I think she's a very strong candidate. I think she stands. We shouldn't be overly confident, but I think she's generating a lot of energy among young people. I think many of them would have voted for Biden. But I think they're more energetic about her candidacy. I look forward to her winning the election. I'm going to do everything I can to make that possible.
There are some protesters, I think, if they're still here, protesting the war in Gaza. This is an issue where you disagree very strongly with President Biden.
Yes.
So first I want to hear if there's if that gap has closed at all recently, and just generally, what is the main difference between you and Biden right now with respect to that?
The difference is profound, and you're right.
Profound, okay.
I think on domestic issues, Biden has been the most progressive president since FDR. I work with him in so many ways. On this issue, he's wrong. Hamas is a terrorist organization that invaded Israel and killed 1,200 innocent people on October 7th, took hundreds of people hostage. They are a terrorist organization that would like to set up an Islamic State, period. And I think Israel had a right to defend itself against Hamas. But what Netanyahu has done is not just go to war against Hamas. What he has done is go to war against the entire Palestinian people. And it's not, I say it's not just. There are 2.2 million people in Gaza. 30,000 are dead, most of whom are women, children, and elderly people. 80,000 are wounded. 65% of the housing stock has been damaged or destroyed. The medical infrastructure has been largely destroyed. Every university, 12 universities in Gaza have been bombed. The civilian infrastructure largely destroyed, raw sewage running into the roads right now. There is no electricity, last I heard, in Gaza. And what's even worse is that Israel has made it difficult for humanitarian aid to get in, leading to the hunger and eventual possible starvation of tens and tens of thousands of children. That is a war crime. And I agree with the International Criminal Court that said both Netanyahu and Sinwar, who was the leader of Hamas, they're both war criminals. Sinwar for starting this war and doing that terrible invasion, and Netanyahu for going to war against the entire Palestinian people. So my view has been from day one, there should not be another nickel going into this Netanyahu right-wing, extremist, racist government. That's my view.
Do you think there's any difference? Well, let me ask you this. The current ceasefire proposal, I believe there's been, Netanyahu seems to have said some positive things about that. What's your judgment about where those negotiations are? Are you encouraged at all? I know you don't put a lot of faith in Netanyahu, it sounds like.
Well,
but are you encouraged by the current state of the negotiations?
I certainly hope to God that there is a ceasefire today, as soon as possible, and that we have got to get massive amounts of humanitarian aid into Gaza, or children by the thousands will be starving to death. And that is not something that the American people, with their tax dollars, should allow to happen.
Do you think there's much of a difference between the president and vice president on this issue? Some reporting suggests that Harris and some of her advisors in meetings have clashed with some of Biden's advisors on this and have been to the left of her on this. Do you
Ryan,
get that
honestly,
sense or no?
My honest answer is I don't know any more than I've read. I read the same stuff that you are. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Do you think that she should break with the president on this issue?
Well, the difficulty is she is within the administration right now. Again, I gave
But
you
on
my view. My view is we should not give another nickel to Netanyahu's extremist government, which is creating a condition where children are starving to death in Gaza. That's my view. Needless to say, I would hope that she, moves in that direction. Will she? I don't know.
But you think it's appropriate, given what an important issue this is and what an issue of conscience, that even though they're in the same administration, that if she has different views, she should state them clearly?
Well, again, you asked me whether she does have different views, and I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is what I think the appropriate course of action is. I would hope that she, and in fact, I would hope the president. I mean, I've talked to the president about this on a number of occasions.
All right, let's wrap up with the president.
I've not stopped asking you questions.
We get
I've got a lot more questions.
We'll take it outside. He's going to speak tonight. Have you talked to him recently?
A few weeks ago.
Well, how did he seem?
I think I would, if I have a
Just
personal
generally.
conversation with the president of the United States, I'm not going to tell you what he said. But, he's fine, and I think...
Not great, then.
Look, see, this is what media does. You see this?
We could ask follow-ups
I
and
don't know how.
clarifications.
I haven't talked to him. I talked to him for 5 minutes a couple of weeks ago. I think he should be very proud of what he has accomplished. I think he's probably disappointed that he's not going to be the candidate again. It's no great secret. But I hope he uses the remaining time to continue an agenda which speaks for the needs of working families in this country, and I'm confident that he will.
And final question here is, what do you want to hear him say tonight? What do you think he should say?
Well, I hope, my one criticism of the Biden administration, I don't think they have been as articulate as they should be about their accomplishments. They have done a lot more than the average American knows. And maybe he'll may want to review some of those major accomplishments.
Senator Sanders, thank you very much for both being interviewed and interviewing.
You did a great job.
It's a real pleasure. It's always fun to talk to you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.